Hello everyone. This is the story of how I bought an Audi in Moscow for my friend from Europe. But let's show you how it was with us today. The Audi R8 is such a great car from 2007 with a mileage of 70,000 kilometers. Now I'll tell you what we managed to buy and I'll tell you how much it costs. Anyway, let's talk about the model. The Audi R8 is quite an interesting model. It costs less than a Lamborghini Gallardo, but nevertheless it is not at all worse than a Lamborghini. And to some extent, I think this car is even better than a Lamborghini because it is more convenient, it is more reliable, and it is cheaper. In general, we bought a car in Moscow and found it on a car website, auto.ru. We found an ad, but in general, this car cost us in Moscow without delivery to Europe. It cost us about 18,000 euros. At that time, the ruble exchange rate was very interesting, and in terms of euros it turned out. That's the kind of money, but I must say right away that the cars are not perfect. Of course, there are no perfect cars for this money, but you know, based on this price, you can definitely earn money here. Now, I'm getting into this car, going to the gas station, filling up with gasoline, but at the same time doing a little test drive. But I'll tell you what kind of car we got. Naturally, there are defects. As you can see from below, the bumper is very badly scratched. But of course, the car is for that kind of money. It won't be perfect, as I've already told you. But the interesting thing is that it hasn't had an accident with an absolutely whole body. There are chips, of course, but the body is completely intact. This is very good, because a car after an accident is usually poorly repaired. And when you buy a cheap car, the most important thing is to make sure that it is not broken or in an emergency. But here we have a crack on the tail light. But we bought this lamp in Moscow, not a new one. And it cost us about, in my opinion, 50 euros. So, basically, in addition to cars, there are also cheap cars in Moscow. Supported spare parts, and there are quite a lot of them. The prices for spare parts for Japanese cars are very good because there are a lot of them in Russia. And there is a very large dark market, a grey market for grey spare parts that are removed from beige cars. Well, with non-new cars, you understand me, as in Poland. It's the same system here, and it works the same way. But actually, the R8 looks nice inside, despite the fact that it is so cheap, despite the fact that there are defects. Well, at the same time, I'll show you how much gasoline costs and see how much gasoline fits into the tank. I'm just filling up the gasoline so that when the car goes to Germany, there will already be a full tank and there will be no need to buy it at a high price. But an interesting point. There is tinting on the car windows. That is, the glass is completely black. But now we're heading out onto the main road. Please note that there are police officers on the left. Now is the moment. You see, it's the cops coming. They were very interested in my car. They saw that my glasses were black. You can't drive like that, but everyone drives like that anyway. And when I started to get on the road, they've been away from me for some time. And they started to turn around too, to drive up to me. I quickly drove into the courtyard, but that's how I managed to escape from them. I waited 10 minutes and drove on. Anyway, I'm at the gas station now. I'm filling up with gasoline. Well, that's how my Audi looks in daylight. Not the worst configuration. There is carbon fiber. Look, you see, we have carbon fiber here. A strange gas tank hatch. I think the car was used in winter. In Russia, special chemicals are poured on the road in winter. They destroy ice, they destroy snow, but they also destroy chrome on cars. There are a lot of cars in Moscow with very bad chrome, with decorative chrome. Therefore, it's about the same story here, only there was polished aluminum. As I understand it, all the varnish just came off the aluminum, and this is the design that turned out. Look at the price of gasoline. The price per litre is less than €1. It is very good. You can have such a car because gasoline is inexpensive. Well, the first sensations after I got into it. Before that, I had a Lamborghini Gallardo. I'll tell you that the Audi R8 is better than the Lamborghini in terms of comfort. It's more convenient. It's interesting here. but absolutely everything works here. Even the rear wing also works. It turns on, it rises when the speed reaches above 100 kilometers per hour. In general, the car is not bad. With all this, he is not particularly conspicuous, he is not particularly noticeable, but it's also beautiful, and I think it will be worth some money in 20 years. Therefore, it makes sense to buy such cars, but if you bought it cheap, then it's generally great. Now I'll tell you how much it cost us, taking into account the import to Germany. But right now we're still riding. One more such moment. There is a problem with these cars. They have a problem with the shock absorbers. By the way, Lamborghini and Ferrari have the same problem. Here, electromagnetic fluid is poured into these shock absorbers. It leaks out, the shock absorbers stop working, but there is one factory in Russia that restores these shock absorbers. For 4 shock absorbers, in my opinion, they charge around €500 for restoration. It's a good price. Therefore, I think that even if something happens to them on this car, we will be able to repair them in Russia later. But once again, I'm showing you this lantern, which we changed a little later. Tires need to be changed here. And this video, I think, will give you an understanding of the quality of cars sold in Russia. But again, don't forget, it was the cheapest Audi R8 on sale at that time. It was in 2021. It wasn't yesterday, it wasn't today, it was 2021. I think many people have heard that cars in Russia were very cheap at that time. Yes, it really is. There were cheap Ferraris, there were cheap Lamborghinis, but now we found another cheap Audi R8. The whole body is in small chips, but there is not a single painted part. It is very good. On the other hand, we'll probably have to do something about it. It can be tinted locally. I do not know what they will do about it in Germany, but my task is to buy. I have completed it, but now I will prepare the car for shipment. At that time, it cost €1,500 to send a car to Düsseldorf from Moscow. This is also a very good price list, but as you can see, it is necessary to change the front brake discs. We also bought them in Russia. For some reason, they were cheaper than in Europe. We also changed the rear brake discs. In general, the discs and pads were changed. I think we did it for a little less than €1,000. They decided to buy rubber in Germany because it is cheaper there. We want to do a dry cleaning of the salon and touch up the driver's seat because it's inexpensive in Russia. In Russia, for €100, you can do a very good dry cleaning of the salon. And I think a master will come for another €50 and touch up the driver's seat. You don't have to go anywhere yourself. This is very good in Moscow. There are a lot of good and qualified specialists. And compared to Europe, everything is just for nothing here. The prices are very good, so it makes sense to do everything here. That's what we always do. As you can see, due to the fact that the car was driven in winter, it has paint defects. You see, there are multiple small chips, but it's not scary. Because the car is not broken, the mileage is basically small. Now, we need to remove the film from the windows so that the windows are not black. Otherwise, to be honest, the police are already a little tired. After I showed you the police car, just an hour later I was stopped by another policeman. But I managed to convince them, in general, that I am already on my way to shoot this film. Well, they believed me. They let me go. It's good. But at the time this video was shot, the first car like this in Germany cost about €50,000. That's why I think it's a good business. Buy it for 18 plus 1,500 shipping. You will also need to pay for customs. And accordingly, the tax. But if you pay for the whole thing, it still turns out to be profitable. You can earn money here anyway. That's why we naturally sold this car later. The only thing was, I had to change the clutch. It seems to me that it cost €6,000. I don't remember anymore. My German friend did it. But now is also an interesting moment. Now you will understand why you had to change the clutch. The car carrier arrived, sheathed. We are currently loading this car. More precisely, the driver of this truck drives himself inside. But there is a problem here. This car, with a robotic box, the box is a robot. It's very dangerous. You can't drive in so slowly, you have to drive in at once. You see, he's doing it slowly. His clutch starts to warm up and the clutch overheating sensor lights up. As a result, I had to change this clutch. It was just that, most likely, during loading and then unloading, the clutch simply burned out. You see, the cheap road has suddenly become expensive. On the other hand, this Audi now has a huge plus. He has a new clutch. We changed it at an authorized Audi dealer. And they, of course, provided the documents. That's good too. But despite this problem, we still managed to make good money from this car. Of course, there were a lot of cars in Moscow in those years. There is no such thing now. Now there are practically no cheap cars left. But you know, they are there anyway. In Moscow, you can buy Rolls-Royces for very reasonable money. It is the old models that are good here. They still have a price. Sometimes they get caught in Ferraris, but there are also relatively inexpensive Range Rovers in Russia. But then again, for example, for Europe, the Range Rover is probably too much. It's too much because the Range Rover has big engines that consume a lot of gasoline. Anyway, as you can see, we loaded this car. A very good carrier, a closed troll. And the car leaves clean. And I have already arrived in Germany, also completely clean. Well, anyway, that's the story we had. Write in the comments if you have bought cars in Moscow, in Russia. How it all happened with you, and whether you have managed to make money from it. I managed to make money from it. I am very satisfied. Well, wait for the next videos. There will be a lot of interesting things there too. All bye.